Come what may, bring it on. I'm gonna love it.
Welcome to LDS Unmarried Life, a podcast for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who find themselves single either because they're divorced, widowed, or not yet married. No affiliation with the church. You can find this podcast on AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. All right, and we are continuing on with our guests that were here earlier for the discussion about inappropriate pictures and stuff like that. That was kind of an interesting conversation. If you didn't listen to that one, go back and listen. But this time we are going to switch topics just a little. It's actually kind of a similar topic. And I'm calling this episode Dating the Enemy. And the reason I'm calling it that is because I feel like a lot of us are either coming out of abusive marriages or bad relationships, or maybe been single forever and feel like the opposite sex just doesn't want me or whatever. We might have what I call complicated feelings for the opposite sex, and yet then we're going to try and go date them. So let's go ahead and introduce everyone. Amy had to leave, so there's just 5 of us, including Pat, on the phone. And we'll go the opposite direction this time. And Pat, introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Pat Steele. I turn 50 next month. I have never been married, no children, and have known Annette for far too long.
Gosh, every time now, huh, Pat? All right, Nikki.
I am Nikki Gamboni, divorced for 6 years, have 4 kids, and I am 30-something.
All right. And our Brit, visiting from Utah.
I am Mark Ranger, originally from England, living in Utah. I'm 52. I'm an atheist convert to the church. Been married and divorced twice, both to LDS women. I have 3 children, 26, 23, and 12. And I love the gospel.
All right. And
I'm Angie. I'm in my mid-40s, and I have 2 daughters that are 16 and 22, and I've never been married.
And you all know I'm Annette, 50, divorced, 3.5 years, 3 girls, all female household. Getting ready to baptize my youngest, actually, in a few weeks, and I'm really excited about that. All right, so let's get to this topic. So it's kind of easy to segue from
It is.
the last one. Hard to get excited about men when you think of them as guys asking for dirty pictures and stuff like that. And, I come out of a marriage where I was emotionally abused for about 8.5 years. And so, when I came out of that, my self-esteem was pretty low. And I was in this mode of where I almost felt like men were guilty until proven innocent, which is not where we want to be. Especially not as a lawyer, I shouldn't be having that attitude. But, and so it seems like for the longest time when I would meet guys, my first question in my mind was, does he have an anger management problem? I'm just sure that all men have anger management problems because my ex did, right? And so I don't get the dirty pictures because that's not my trial in life, right? That was not my husband didn't have any issues with sex or porn or anything like that. It was all anger management. So maybe I'm just on the lookout for the angry men. I don't know.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have you forgiven your ex?
Yes. I forgave him every time that he...
No, but I mean forgiven him to the point whereby you wish him the best for his life.
No, I have. It's been 3.5 years, and...
Because I found that once I got to the point of true forgiveness to my wife who cheated on me, I didn't carry that with me everywhere I went, and every time I met somebody, I didn't assume they would lie to me or cheat on me or something because I didn't carry that burden with me anymore. So sometimes we carry the pain of what we suffered when we were married around with us, and when we meet somebody, we hold it up to qualify them as far as whether I would date them or not, and any kind of lie or anything that comes out that feels like a lie, I'm gone. I'm out the door, even if it was an innocent thing that they said,
right.
Because I'm so nervous about having that experience again. And when I learned to forgive and let go and move forward with my life, I didn't worry about it anymore. Because I think part of the healing process for us who've been married and divorced is that we need to let go of what we've experienced in our marriages and give that to God and let Him handle those experiences for us, so we can heal ourselves, so then we can meet people with a fresh, clean slate, if you like, and we're not prejudging them based upon what we experienced in our last relationship or in our last marriage, because you will attract people who are like your ex. Mm-hmm. You just can't help it.
I agree with everything you just said, but I want to add something.
Good.
And that is that even when you go through this process, because I have a fabulous counselor, local counselor here, and she was with me through the divorce, through everything, and even though I have worked through all of these feelings, and I even found myself praying for him recently, and that told me I have forgiven him. Even with all that, I still sometimes have what I think of as almost like a PTSD reaction. And, usually when I see my ex now, it's very placid. We don't hardly ever see each other except to exchange kids. And so we have sort of minimal contact. But one time, I want to say a year and a half ago, he lost it with me in front of the kids. And I remember I just froze. Because it was like, oh my gosh.
It plays back in your mind.
It's an immediate flashback to where you were before.
Yes, and so I talked myself through it and everything, and I went to see the counselor. She's like, "Yeah, that's PTSD." Luckily, it's only been the one time. I mean, I don't have to face it anymore, but there's still that.
There's some triggers.
Yeah, there's some triggers, and so yes, I have forgiven him, and I am better now, and I don't think that all men.
It's about not being a doormat to their behavior.
Yeah, no, I won't be, but I've almost gone the opposite direction of. If I see any sign of a temper, I run, which is dumb because, as my friends are always telling me, and my sister and everyone loses their temper, and I know that everyone. I lose my temper with my kids. I'm not immune to it.
It takes a lot for me to, because of what I had as a child growing up, and my father being a very violent person, that I knew I couldn't be like him. So that side of me I'm afraid of that side of me. But I had to learn to stand up for myself without having a temper. Does that make sense? And so, not being a doormat to poor behavior, standing up for yourself without being scary. Because I'm 6'3" and I have a big loud voice. I could be really scary. I know I could, but I don't want to be that person. I'm much more like my mother than my father, and so it's recognizing the positives that you have and the negatives that you have that make you you, and then dealing with those things in a way that when they come along, you don't just knee-jerk back to the base version of you, which says, I saw anger, I'm running.
Yeah.
Well, what context was the anger in? Was it in a vengeful way or a nasty way, or was it somebody getting angry about something? Because you have to be, it has to be contextual to what the situation was, rather than just, I see anger, I'm running. That's not going to be helpful for you in the long run, because you will get married to somebody and he will get angry over something, and then what do? You're married to him at that point. How do you deal with that? So if you don't deal with it in the dating side of things, you're going to find it very uncomfortable to deal with it when you're married.
Oh yeah, no, and I think that's, well, first of all, I think that's one of the reasons why people should wait before they date after their divorce. They need to give it some time.
People don't know.
And they don't. No, that's in my book, actually. We spent a whole chapter on that. But, and because I learned the hard way not to, I've been through it. People don't need to go through that. Really, give yourself some time. But also I've learned sort of the art of mindfulness, which is to sit with my emotions and not just act on them, and to talk myself through things, so that when I meet a guy for the first time, if I do see some of that anger, I'm able to just kind of go, okay, yeah, like you said, context. What's the context here? And to collect more information before making that judgment.
And also to be authentic, to be who you are, and to be okay with that. And so when someone experiences somebody from you that maybe triggers something in them, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. you are who you are. They either like you or they don't like you. That's the bottom line at the end of it. And if they don't like you, it doesn't matter really, because you're still a great person. If somebody doesn't like you and you're a great person, does it really matter? So we get all worked up and upset because we asked somebody out and they said no. I'm okay with that. It's just an opportunity for me to get to know somebody and them to get to know me. If they don't want to get to know me, okay. But I never used to have that. I was always so uptight and upset and wondering what I did wrong and what I said wrong and how I could fix me. It wasn't about that. Yeah. It was about loving who you are and being confident about who you are. So when you meet somebody, they meet the authentic you rather than the insecure you. But when you meet somebody you like, you suddenly you smother them completely, and then you end up pushing them away because you're so insecure about a relationship. So confidence and authenticity is really important for dating. And if you're not authentic and you don't have that self-confidence, you're really not ready to date people, because you are going to have experiences that remind you and trigger you of things you've had in the past, and you're going to freak out, and you're going to run, or you're going to react in a negative way. The guy's going to go, or the girl's going to go, whoa, like, what's all this about? I just said this, or I just did this, and you're overreacting, and you don't know why you're overreacting, but because you haven't dealt with something. And so that instance with your ex, that one time or whatever, that doesn't mean you haven't healed and overcome something. That just means when something like that happens, how do you deal with that explosion of anger with someone that you're dating? Because your ex is easy, you understand, you would date, you'd marry them for a while or whatever. You know how to deal with that stuff. But when someone who you care about does that to you, do you shut down? Do you put the walls up, the barbed wire fence around it, and say, okay, we're done, goodbye, leave me alone, or whatever? Or do you say, can you give me a minute? Can we talk about this? Can we come back to this? Can I share some things with you that I've experienced? Because if you care about him and he cares about you, he's going to want to do that.
Yes, Nikki.
So, like what you said, Annette, and what the whole topic is, dating your enemy. So, I grew up in a very physically abusive household. My stepdad was a drug addict, and he had alcohol, substance abuse, and he was physically violent, mainly to my mom and to me. So the guy I married, he didn't have substance abuse, but he was physically abusive, he was verbally abusive, in your face, screaming, you were walking on eggshells. So it was me pretty much reliving my childhood. So when I finally got up the courage to leave, I was divorced for 3 years before I started dating again. But I didn't go to counseling. I joined the church, so I've been a convert for 5 years. And that type of person, in my mind, that was my enemy. I wasn't going to meet anyone. Like, that's why I joined the church. Wouldn't have to worry about alcohol abuse, any of that stuff. So that was my safety net. And I wasn't going to gravitate towards a guy that was prone to anger. So the pitfall of that is I went for the meekest, quietest guy, and he is a porn and sex addict. So I think you have to be very careful when you stereotype, this type of guy, and you tell yourself, well, I'm just going to go for the opposite of that.
Yeah. It's interesting because you said that, you were raised in this abusive environment, and then you married someone that put you into an abusive environment, and then you were divorced, but you didn't get the therapy or whatever, and so you stepped into another abusive environment. And it just reminds me that we all kind of do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we don't take care of our stuff, right. Because my dad was verbally abusive. Yeah. Duh, of course, I later married a verbally abusive man. And so, but over the last 3.5 years, I have been doing a post-mortem on my marriage, on my childhood, the whole thing, opening the whole thing up, and just, figuring out what the heck, why am I where I'm at? How did this happen? So it never happens again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think post-divorce is a really good time to have a renaissance. And so that's what I feel like I'm doing right now. I'm in a renaissance. You know, I mean, I'm switching careers. Everything. I'm completely shifting the way I look
Right.
at life and at everything. And so, but yeah, if you don't do that, you can end up the same place that you ended up before. And just as a side note, I'm working really hard at trying to do an episode on addiction. And hopefully specifically sex and porn addiction. I'm trying to find a professional to come on. It's not as easy as I thought. I've been reaching out. I want to talk to someone who can tell us how to spot an addiction, how to talk about the addiction with the person, and then whether to even try and navigate a relationship with someone with an addiction.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this and you know of someone, a professional that specializes in addiction, that would be willing to come on, let me know. Even if they're long distance, I'll do a phone interview if I need to.
I'll check my network because I have a big network. So.
All right. So yes, start looking for me. Pat, do you have anything to say? Oh.
No, I kind of been listening. I mean, I don't have really any of the stories that you guys have, but the one thing that I can tell you for sure, as far as when it comes to dating and trying to figure out the right person for you, I've seen too many of my friends who have gone down the road where they get isolated from their life, essentially. The one example I have is from my friend in Albuquerque that we were really good friends for a long, long time, and we were always hanging out, and then she started dating this one guy, and he started isolating her from us, her friends.
Yeah.
And so pretty soon it was all about him. And then at her best friend's birthday party, she came in for 2 minutes, said hi, gave her a gift, gave her a hug, and then said, I've got to go out to the car. He's waiting on me.
Okay.
And then pretty soon it was, he moved into her house. Then he drove drunk and wrecked her car. And then, I mean, it just kept escalating.
Why did she stay with him, do you think?
I think possibly
She loved him.
because I've had another friend kind of go through the same thing until he got physically abusive with her, which was they were looking at, and I don't know if it's a self-esteem issue or what it was, but it was an issue where they didn't see what was going on until it was too late. And when it was too late, they felt they had already invested all their time and energy into this, and they had to stay with it to make it work. And frankly, my biggest pet peeve I have is, well, I won't say it's my biggest pet peeve, but one of the pet peeves I have about dating is if you're dating somebody and you're starting to get isolated from your normal routine, your friends, your family, and the normal things you do, that's a red flag in my book. And
A huge one.
I've told several girls that that's a huge red flag. You need to be aware of that because when you get, I mean, I haven't been married, so I can't speak to that, but when you're looking for someone, you become a part of their life, they become a part of your life. You don't become their life, and that's it.
Right. They're not the center of your world.
Yeah, it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and that's what it has to be. Otherwise, it's never going to work out.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat.
So my father was a wife-beaten alcoholic. His father was a wife-beaten alcoholic. My sister is dating a wife-beaten alcoholic.
Of course.
And I'm trying to talk to her about it and trying to open her eyes to she's dating my dad, like that type of person, and she doesn't want to know.
Because it feels comfortable. It's like they say,
because
you find someone like, it's like going home.
Well, her self-esteem is so low that she doesn't think she's worth anything. When you know how much you're worth, then you'll realize what you're worth, and then you won't date people who don't recognize your worth to you. And so a lot of the times it starts with you, your self-worth, what you think you're worth, what you know that your standards are, or the type of person you're looking for. When someone comes along and doesn't meet that, I'm polite, but I won't entertain them at all as far as relationship or dating goes, because that's not what I'm looking for. And so it has to start with you, healing you, knowing what you're looking for, what you're about in life, and when you meet somebody who matches that, it's a good fit. But if they don't, and clearly they're not valuing your self-worth and who you are, you have enough self-confidence to say, no, thank you. And normally at that point, they scream and shout at you and tell you what a horrible person you are, and you go, and this is supposed to validate what exactly?
Yeah.
Well, and I think sometimes naively, it doesn't necessarily have to be lack of self-confidence. Like for me, with the member of the church, I thought like it was my duty to him to try to save him. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes there are some of us that really do think, you know, you believe this person and you want to believe that you see the potential there.
Right. There is good in everyone.
But I think we all live and learn, and you have to learn from those bad experiences and set those boundaries and realize you just have to put it in God's hands. If that person wanted to change, they would change. You can't be someone's savior.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I want to do an addiction episode, because I want people to realize that they are not responsible for. And you cannot change someone. You can never make someone do anything. That was one of the pitfalls I fell in with my marriage, was that I thought.
And it's hard as a mother, and like it's hard to.
But how do you, when somebody says that they're wanting to work on changing, how do you decide whether or not you're going to stay there and support them? If they say, you know, and they start doing what they need to do, when do you decide, well, I'm not going to stay?
Come back to me when you've changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard though. It's hard.
But
to
sometimes
say that.
people do. You know, I guess I think that
it's
sometimes having that.
Change.
Well, if they're working on it, being that support for them while they're working on it. You know, sometimes it helps people to get through it.
And there has to be continued progress. You have to see more.
And if you see it, then how do you know when to walk away?
I would say you help them as a friend and not in a romantic relationship.
Right.
Because you don't want to be with someone who's not rock solid.
Right.
You don't want to consider marriage with someone who's not rock solid.
My question is, who out there is 100% rock solid?
I don't know that anyone's
100,
but they got to be pretty darn close, at least 90, 95%. If they have huge issues that they're still carrying around, they're probably not ready for marriage. That's why I want to talk about this counselor or whoever about addiction, because I want to get some concrete.
I can be supportive of somebody while they're healing, but we won't go on any dates. That way it's not attached to our relationship, it's attached to them healing and learning to get through their process. And I'm not deserting them as a friend. I'm absolutely supporting them 100% friend. We just won't go on any dates, because if they attach them changing to dating, then that's not why they're changing. They're not changing for themselves. They're changing so that I'll stay around. We can't do that.
But I think I don't know, I guess I look from the other end of, you know, you're confident enough about yourself to say, oh, you've got issues. Okay, well, you know, I'll just back off. But when you have that connection, it's not that easy. It's not that easy to say, well, I'll just be your friend while you're dealing with this. And you're like, but I've already built this connection. I already have this with you. I don't really want to let this go, and if you're going to work on it, then I'll support you, and let's see how things go.
Right.
It's not that easy to just walk away.
It's not that easy. What I would say is, if the person continues to hurt you, if they're whatever their issues are harmful to you and to themselves, then my philosophy, learned from experience, is I'd rather break my heart than let this person that I love break my heart every single day.
Yeah.
So I would rather just break my heart once and walk away.
Like if you're looking
to give yourself, I mean, that might be what they need to open their eyes to their healing and their journey. And that might be what you need to find that person you're meant for.
Sometimes I think too you have to look
But
at it.
it's-
Are they
yeah.
willing to take the step
Yeah.
to work on it? Because if they're not even going to take the steps to work on it, then you have to walk away
Yeah.
at that point.
I
You
had
have to.
a friend who was married in the church but never sealed in the temple, and so she tried and tried and tried and tried, and she was worthy and temple recommended and everything. Her husband would never get temple worthy, never go down that road, so she got divorced. And she's going through the divorce process, and he messaged her and said, "Okay, I'm having the temple lessons." She said, "What?" So I'm on the temple. Let's get sealed in the temple. And she said, "We've waited all this time, and now we're getting divorced. And now you're gonna have the temple questions, and now you're gonna go to the temple. But we'll come back and let's stay married." He said, and she went, "Mm-mm." She said, "You contact me when you have a temple recommend, and we'll talk and we'll date and we'll go out. And maybe we'll get sealed in the temple, but I'm not just going to come back because you're having the temple lessons, because you're trying to get a temple recommend, because you want it to be sealed, because you're attaching our relationship to your behavior. And I don't know that that's why you're doing this. Is
But
it
you
for
don't know that they won't fall back into
Right,
it.
exactly. And so she wouldn't go down that road of stopping the divorce and moving back in because he wanted to get sealed in the temple. That was the thing that she lived for the most. And so she got divorced. He moved to Wyoming.
Well, and you think about too, you don't, even though you are with somebody and they're working on making improvements, there's always that thought in the back of your mind of how do you know they're not going to fall back to it? Something's not going to happen that they're going to fall back into this. And that's, as somebody says, I'm fixing it, but maybe if they're fixing it for this relationship, that down the line they're going to struggle, and then it's not going to be that way anymore.
Well,
They're not
wanna be
fixing it for
equally-
themselves.
Yeah.
You want to be equally yoked.
Right.
Okay, so if you feel like you're always the one driving the engine in the relationship, keeping this person on track,
Right.
you are not equally yoked.
Yeah.
That's
And so
right.
I think that's huge. If you feel like you're keeping it together, I used to think of the marriage that I was in like a jalopy. Like I was always like putting tape on this thing, trying to keep this thing on the road because it was a jalopy.
Right.
And I'm not going to be in another jalopy in the next relationship. I'm going to marry a rock. Now I think everyone's got, of course, their issues, but I'm not going to enter a relationship where I feel like I am driving the thing. He and I need to be driving it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have a very strong testimony in the church because of my conversion. So I went on a date with somebody who hadn't been active for 20 years and said that she would come back to church when she meets a good priesthood holder. And I'm
Gosh,
like,
seriously.
it can't be me.
No.
And she's like, why not? I said, because I can't give you my testimony.
No.
You weren't there when I had my experiences. You can't come to church on the back of what I know to be true. You have to do it for you. And so for me, that testimony thing is vital. I go to church for me. I bear my testimony in church because I had experiences or whatever. I'm not doing it for someone to think, oh, what a great guy. Like, it's
But
like,
you don't know that you're going to stay active. I've got women in my ward that married men and were sealed, and they felt they were strong priesthood holders, and for some reason or another they have become inactive, and the women are still active, but their husbands don't want anything to do with the church.
categorically say that I will always be active in the church because God sent a missionary to find me.
But I'm just saying, when somebody marries someone to say, oh, well, I'm looking for a good priesthood holder, you can't bank on, okay, this person's always going to be doing this. You have to know that that's the person that I want to be with. And I'm making sure that, like you said, I have my own testimony that because this person could fall away from the church.
Well, marriage
You
is
don't
definitely
know.
a gamble, no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if you are doing everything right, and we talked before the episode about having a non-negotiable list. My counselor friend Jim doesn't like it. I don't think that, but I have I have to have non-negotiables.
You have to.
Because I'm not going to marry outside of the church. Number one. And so I don't date outside of the church. I know some people do, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying you're taking a big chance because only 1 in 7 convert after
But
marriage.
do you date somebody that's active in the church but doesn't hold a current temple recommend?
Probably not.
So my wife, when she met me, was LDS and I was an atheist. She's now excommunicated and I'm the active one. So it can happen. But,
it can.
For the most part, it doesn't happen. And so I have a non-negotiable list, and I'm okay if people don't like it. Because it's my decisions, they're my life, and it's my family that I'm introducing to somebody, and it's not something I'm just going to put out there and say, oh yeah, you're LDS, okay, that works. Like, no, like, let me ask you some questions that you may find uncomfortable, and if you do, well, okay, you may be uncomfortable, but it's okay, because we haven't invested anything yet.
Yeah. No, we're talking about a huge commitment. I really don't want to get a divorce again. I really don't. Although I have to say right now, because I think about this kind of thing every once in a while. I have 3 girls at home, and I remember when my mom was married to stepdad. I was a grown up, but he was such a jerk. I will not put my kids through that. If I make a mistake, or you marry someone thinking they're one way and they end up being another way, we know that happens because people lie.
Right.
I will not hesitate to cut someone out who's not good with my kids.
Yeah.
If they are not adding to my life, they are not staying in my life.
Yeah.
But that's why I have the non-negotiables, because
Right.
I want what I didn't have in my first marriage. I'm not going to settle. So if that means I'm single until the millennium, whatever,
Such
so
is
be
life.
it.
But-
So,
Well, I think we're people who have been divorced. I think at least you have that experience. You know how much work and effort it is to share your life with someone else. It is hard.
Yeah.
And then to add kids to it, I think there's a natural fear for those of us who are dating again that we don't want to end up in that situation again. So there are a lot of hoops sometimes that we do have for our potential suitors. And honestly, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think those people do need to understand that like she's really serious about trying to find her eternal husband and have this eternal family. So I think the opposite sex, if they are committed, will respect you more because you do have that list, because you know exactly what you're looking for, and
You're going to stand by those standards.
yes, and you're not going to settle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
blending families is not easy.
No. I don't look forward to that. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
me
that
either.
whoever I find, his
Having
kids are
blended
grown.
a family already
Yeah.
and blended countries and families and
Oh, gosh.
cultures and heritage and stuff.
And accents,
wow.
blending accents has got to be really hard.
Yeah. Well, when I first met Mason, who's now 18, I was talking to his mum in the house, and he was 3 at the time, and he comes up to his mum and said, I can't understand what he's saying. And I said to his mum, what did Mason say? And she's just like, wait a minute, we're speaking English and we can't
interpret.
understand each other. I gave a sacrament talk in California after I'd moved there, after I got married and moved there. And I was told by my wife to slow down and enunciate my words. And still, apparently, half the congregation didn't understand a word
No,
I
that's
said.
hilarious. It's lovely.
I actually get that. I got that quite often when I first moved to Colorado, just having a Chicago accent.
Is that what
People
it is?
would
I knew it was
ask me
Midwest, but I wasn't sure
People
what.
would ask me to slow down, and I didn't even realize I had an accent. So I
That's
was really
hilarious.
insecure.
I get it on the phone more than anything else, and they'll just go silent on the phone, and you're like, did I lose you? Yeah, the last 30 seconds of whatever you said, I got none of it. And you
Oh, by the
go,
way,
I wouldn't
that
think
means
that.
that we're international. This podcast has gone international, right? So, I mean, you live in Utah, but you still go back home, jolly old England,
my
right?
son hasn't been to England. We're going in the summer to visit and to do some family history work and everything, and show him where I grew up and everything, because he's never been. But his mum doesn't like England. Even though she married a guy from England, we can't talk about anything in England in her house because it's like sacrilege.
Oh, that's so stupid.
That is
Sorry.
so weird. Yeah.
And so for a long time, he didn't like England because she didn't like England. Now he's changed in that, and so things are more amenable with that and everything. But yeah, for a long time, England was the bad word to say in that house.
So, getting back on topic, one of the things that I've decided in this whole dating thing is, well, first of all, if you have a great counselor, go to the counselor. I mean, like whenever I meet a good guy that seems like that could actually be something, I start freaking So I email my counselor. I'm like, can I get in and see you? And she's even said, you can bring him
That's my
in.
friend Jenny.
She says you can bring him in, and I'll chat with both of you. And I said, that's great. She doesn't do couples counseling, but
She'll do
I've
interviewing.
decided. What's that?
She'll do interviewing.
Yes, exactly. She'll give the once over, right? But I will find, the other thing is that once I am in a relationship that I think is going to go somewhere, which it seems like not ever going to happen, but when it does happen someday.
Be positive. Have positive energy
Right.
that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because if you say it won't happen,
I know,
you
law of
won't
attraction.
meet people because you're saying it won't happen.
It's-
Does that
it's-
make sense?
I've tried to lower my expectations because I got too hyper focused on finding someone, and so now I've kind of just let go and like whatever happens. But anyway, I'm going to make it a non-negotiable that we do premarital counseling, because I would much rather do premarital counseling and find out there's something that I missed, or we realize this is not a good fit and break up, than go through a bad marriage and get divorced again. So premarital counseling has become a non-negotiable for me. And so that's something that if he says no to that, I
Yeah.
think that's a red flag too.
I have my friend. I don't have a counselor. I have my friend Jenny. And so when I meet somebody I talk to Jenny, and she helps me to slow down
Oh, good.
and not get so like worked up and whatever, and the self confidence comes back, and I'm okay how it works out. If it doesn't work out, it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to work out every time,
No.
but that's because I have
That's-
someone to talk to.
So Pat's got something. Pat?
That's actually a great point that you make, Mark, because if it worked out the first time, how do we know if it was a good or bad relationship? And the key to that is that we go through the bad so that we can become stronger, so that when the good does happen, we can work through it on a regular basis. Because the fact that whenever you are in a relationship, you're trying to find the best in the other person and the best in yourself and bring that together. At the end of the day, we're all progressing to the same goal, which is exaltation.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to do that, then we have to know the difference between the good and the bad times. Otherwise, there would be no choice, and therefore the plan that we're here on the plan of salvation would
I
not
know the bad times.
be in effect.
So in other words, we shouldn't think it's terrible if we ended a relationship because we learned something from it and
Oh,
we
yeah.
learned what we don't want the next time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have to have the
Absolutely.
bad with the good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even like if you're working out in the gym, I remember in high school, I used to work or lift weights, and I hated the way I felt every morning after I finished lifting weights the day before, because, the lactic acid buildup and all that stuff. And I remember I found out that if I just continued to lift the same weight every time, I wouldn't be as sore as I was the next day. Well, a guy from school asked me, he goes, well, why do you keep lifting the same weights? I said, well, this is why. I explained it. He goes, that's great. He says, but you'll never get stronger if you never lift more weight.
Yeah.
And in our lifetime, we have to lift more weight, because we're not all 12 and 13 years old anymore, giggling in the corner about dating somebody or liking a girl and sending a note, check this box if you like me. This is
Yeah.
Yeah.
is more serious, and it has to be.
You have to take risks.
Yeah. And be vulnerable. Being
Yeah.
vulnerable and dating
Oh,
when you've been in a bad relationship is hard. But I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown.
Yeah.
And so I've learned a ton about
but
vulnerability.
There's levels of vulnerability. You can give them some of your vulnerableness, but not
oh
all
yeah,
of it on the
just
first
a
day.
little at the beginning.
Yeah, don't
not
give
all
them
of
all.
it.
Don't
Yeah.
vomit your vulnerability on them and tell them everything that happened in your relationships on the first day.
Might scare them away.
Yeah.
Well, because
Or
that's
give them
not,
too much.
That's you haven't got that level of
Trust.
relationship and trust going
Yeah.
on, and you're giving them way too much information to deal with on a first date. You don't know anything about them, don't know anything about you. You haven't built that friendship up. I always say, like, friendship first is really a nice way to date people. It's not for everybody. I understand some people don't like that. They want to do the dating thing, but dating somebody you're friends with is kind of nice because you already know you like each other, and then you just add the dating into it. And if it doesn't work out, I got a friend. I didn't lose anything at that point.
I wish Steve were here right now, because he's always insisting that you get friend zoned and you can't get out of the friend zone. And I'm always telling him, relationships are not like always a straight line.
But
They
then
can
with
be
him,
one thing and then
That's
change into
Because,
something
that's because
else.
he has people in it whose friend zoned him who he wants to date. That's why he doesn't like a friend zone.
Yeah,
Well,
you
and
hear
I-
that, Steve?
I will say I did, before joining the church, I did not know how to date someone I considered a friend. If they were my friend, I would keep them in that zone because I didn't want to lose their friendship.
Yeah.
I didn't want to risk it.
Well, friends won't break up with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have that person to talk to.
But I
So
have-
there's a lot of people I still am friends with from high school. Like they joke, "Oh, she put me in the friend zone right away, so I just had to settle to be your friend." And like we're still really good friends.
But I have friends who got married, and we're still friends.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the
Well, I
hope
think
is...
that as you get older, you learn how to. A healthy relationship, you need to be friends first.
What, Pat?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you know for sure that you're not attracted to this person, like the chemistry's not there or whatever. But other times things can grow over time. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I mean, obviously we all want to marry our BFFs, right? I have my vision board upstairs, right? And in the middle,
Good.
I've got a picture.
Get a high five for that.
Yes. In the middle is a picture of a man, a couple in front of the temple, in their wedding clothes, and it says BFFs forever or something like that. And so, yes, that is my dream. I want to be married to my best friend
Right.
for eternity. It's just that sometimes you don't know. I mean, it's
You
complicated.
don't know the
you know?
dynamics of why you
Yeah.
meet people and what happens when you meet somebody that you thought you were only going to be friends with, and suddenly you're not just friends with them, and you never saw that happening, and suddenly from left field it went from we've been really good friends for a while or whatever, and suddenly
Someone
feelings.
bends, right? Isn't that Beauty and the Beast? But also it happens the other way, where I've met a lot of guys I've dated. I usually go on 1 or 2 dates. That's like I'm a one date wonder. But
Me too.
I then end up with a big tribe of friends, and I love that. And I have a lot of good guy friends, and it's important to have opposite sex friends because you learn how to have relationships.
But also, you may know a girl who'd be a great
Exactly.
fit for a guy who's
Yes.
a good guy, and you say to your girlfriend, "Hey, so and so is single, and he's a really good guy, and I think you two could work well together.
Right.
So let me talk to him because
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. And you do like the referral friends dating
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Because
Although I'm a lousy matchmaker. I don't know why, but I agree. And you want to put someone in your tribe if they're a decent person. So,
Yeah.
all right. So we are going to wrap this up because we have hit past 40 minutes, but it's been a great discussion. Thank you guys for participating. And if you're listening and you want to comment, please go on to AnnetteTalks.com and comment on this episode or other episodes. And you can listen on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. So thank you for listening to LDS Unmarried Life, where LDS singles gather.
I'm gonna bloom where I'm planted. I won't take things for granted. Come what may, bring it on. I'm gonna love it.